What is going on, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another video. Today we're checking out Regiments of the Imperial Guard Maccabian Janissaries, or Maccabian Janissaries. Not too sure what they are, but a lot of you guys really want me to check out more Imperial Guard regiments. I know we've done obviously Death Corps of Krieg, and we've done I think Iron Guard or something. It's the Armageddon guys, bro. I can't remember exactly what they're called right now. But yeah, this has been requested, I believe, on YouTube and in the Discord. So yeah, I'm going to do this video today. Now, before we get into this, I have two things to say. Number one, regards, which long video do you guys want next? Now, I think I will be starting the TTS podcast very soon, but they are very, very long. So I'm gonna prepare myself for those. So before that, what long video do you guys want? You have 4 options right now that I want to watch. Dark Eldar, which I feel like I've had on my playlist for the longest time, from Arch. Sisters of Battle in the Age of Apostasy, also from Arch. The Primarch's Lehman Russ Law from Italian Spartacus. Or Titan Weaponry and Void Shields from Arch. Or one more, Legion of the Damned, which I actually really do want to watch, also from Arch. So of those 5, you guys let me know, which one do you guys want to watch? 2, I said I was going to stream this week. Now this is a sticky one because I might be able to stream just me talking, but I don't know how entertaining that would be because I'll run out of words to say eventually. Even if it doesn't seem like I would, I definitely will. So yeah, the thing is, my internet has this weird problem. Like, my internet's really good, like the numbers. I think I have like 200 download, 16 upload, which is more than enough to stream. The problem is, whenever I upload a video to YouTube or I stream, my internet starts lagging and it starts like bouncing all over the place, in terms of it will go all the way down to 0 upload, then to 8, then it just keeps bouncing. So I can't get a consistent stream without it lagging, and yeah, it'll be kind of a difficult one. So until I get that fixed, I don't know if I can stream. I'll be doing some test streams just to see if I can fix it, but I'll let you guys know if I can actually stream without any issues. But yeah, it's annoying, but it's unfortunately how it has to be right now. But yeah, that's my announcements for the day. We're going to get into this video from Arch in Maccabian Janissaries. Yeah, let's do this. I look a bit like a clown today, but I like my hood being on because my head is cold, you know, so it's staying on, bro. It's just staying on.
Greetings and salutations, friends, and welcome back to some more Warhammer 40k lore. Today we are going to be looking at one very special little Imperial Guard regiment. One of my favourites when it comes to pure visual style, the Maccabian Janissaries.
So it's Maccabian Janissaries. So I was kind of correct.
I mean, just fucking look at that. That is just beautiful.
Yeah, they do look pretty cool, dude. I can't recall what this reminds me of right now. They remind me of somebody. I mean, they do look like the Sons of the Harpy masks from Game of Thrones, but then again, that's not who I'm thinking of right now. There's a specific movie or TV series with masks exactly like this that I cannot seem to remember for my life. Anyway.
Beautiful. I love their entire aesthetics. The dull grey colourings, the silver death masks, their huge, almost bolt gun looking M36 pattern las guns. They are just gorgeous. They look every bit the crazy religious zealots that they are. So, let's have a look at their backstory, shall we? First and foremost, as mentioned, they are a very, very religious regiment. In fact, they're almost to the point of being one of the old frateris militia regiments of old. They are zealous and almost fearless warriors, to the point where one of their anti-tank doctrines includes taking a random Janissary, giving him 2 melter bombs, and asking him to do his best Speedy Gonzales impression in the direction of the enemy's armoured vehicles.
Sounds like the Krieg boys, the Death Corps of Krieg. I wonder if I don't think they're on the same level with those guys. Those guys are fucking insane, bro. Deathcore of Krieg, bro. Ah, these are the most religious. They're really religious, so the Emperor, they love the Emperor more than they should. I mean, yeah, nothing wrong with that, I guess.
As you can probably imagine, the survival rate amongst these volunteers is roughly that of a snow cone that has been shoved up Satan's anus during the hottest season in hell. But if you do, by some miraculous reason, survive, you do get a special promotion. Well, technically speaking, you get the special promotion even if you don't live, and, well, it saves a lot on extra officers' pay, if nothing else. Although, it should...
Do they even get paid, dude? Like, money in 40k seems pointless. Like, what do you even get to buy?
It should also be mentioned that comparing the Janissaries to a standard Imperial Guard regiment wouldn't be entirely correct. They are organized as such, and in all due technicality they are a standard Imperial Guard regiment, albeit an elite one, that usually gets better supplies than most others, but they do have one vital difference. Most Imperial Guard regiments are levied directly from planets' PDFs, or local militias. The Janissaries are also levied from what is technically the local militia, but with a slight twist. So, let's look at their backstory, their planet of origin, shall we, and the reason why they wear those ever so stylish death masks. And they, of course, bear the resemblance of a famous imperial saint, namely Saint Drusus. Saint Drusus started his career as a saint, I suppose you could call it, as an imperial commander, taking part in the Angevin Crusade. Before his elevation, he was in command of the Trailwood Salient of the Crusade, pushing into the Halo Stars. The goal of the Crusade was to establish a stable dominion in what was a rather uncomfortable area of space, filled with warp storms and, of course, all of the wonderful little chaos-worshipping monkeys that follow chaos storms like ducklings following a mother goose.
Ducklings following a mother goose? Yeah. Well, ducklings follow a goose, dude. Or a goose chicks, also called ducklings. Huh.
Fortunately for Drusus, he quickly found himself outmaneuvered by the forces of chaos. They undoubtedly used some form of vile sorcery to simply pop right behind his lines and into his rear, wreaking havoc upon his lines of supply and also his rearguard forces. In an attempt to regain control over the situation, Drusus ordered that all of his forces be rallied on a single planet. The planet, later to be known as Maccabius Quintus, was at that point uncolonized and devoid of life. It had a basic atmosphere and could sustain human life, although it was a remarkably harsh place, even in the harshness of the galaxy. On this planet, he was a...
That's how you become a fucking godlike warrior in 40k, bro. You have to grow up in the harshest of environments. All the best Imperial Guard regiments, they all have the most insane fucking requirements to live on their planet. Like, the Deathcore of Krieg live in a nuclear wasteland, bro. They live in Chernobyl, fucking amplified, bro. Like, literally. That's how they became like they are. Fuck these guys. They also live on a death planet. You've got the fucking Kashatan or what? You got the Kashatan warriors or whatever who live on the fucking planet where everything kills you. You've got those Arctic warriors. But already got all kinds of shit, bro.
Again ambushed, some vile sorcery, once again no doubt, and the forces of chaos discovered his location, his precise location. And as the forces of chaos are wont to do with such information, they sent a giant fuck-off demon to go help him pray. It is a little-known fact that nothing is quite as effective as a spiky monstrosity to get one closer to the Emperor, in a very, very physical and spiritual sense. And while Demon versus Lone Imperial Commander is an unfair fight at the best of times, and Drusus was no exception to this particular statistic of murder...
Yeah, even Space Marine vs Demon is kind of unfair, especially them big-ass demons. I mean, Tusk, a Demon Killer, couldn't even destroy one of them. I mean, he did cut off one of their balls, so GG's. Didn't even know demons had balls. But, yeah, man.
he did have a little bit of an ace up his sleeve. Apparently, Drusus had been a very, very good boy in his life, and so when the spiked monstrosity tore his head from his spine, the Emperor decided that he couldn't simply just let him die like this, and resurrected him in the form of a living saint, the mere presence of which was more than enough to banish the demonic assassin.
Wait, the Emperor can resurrect people now? Bro, you learn something every day about the Emperor. I swear to God. Yeah, now I remember what I wanted to say about saints. Like, I don't know about other countries, but in the UK, all 4 countries have a saint, right? England has St. George, Scotland has St. Andrew, I believe. Northern Ireland has someone, and Wales also have someone that I cannot remember right now. And the whole story behind St. George is that he killed a dragon, but that can't be correct. Like, where did these stories originate from? I mean, this makes more sense, because he was actually resurrected and became a saint because of it. You know what I'm saying?
Newborn saint quickly resumed command over his forces, and from that point onwards he was said to know no defeat, and managed to establish a stable domain that would come to be known as the Calyx sector. The planet upon which the living saint had been born was turned into a shrine world in honor of his memory, and dubbed Maccabus Quintus. The Maccabian Janissaries were formed to carry his likeness out further into the galaxy and continue the good work that he had begun, and of course also to keep what he had managed to wrest from the diabolical forces of the great enemy. Now granted, I will say that I find the whole wearing of a dead man's face ever so slightly macabre, but then again, this is 40k and the Imperium to boot, so it is only fitting in all due reality. So, why did I say that they're quite different from normal Imperial Guard regiments? Well, as you can probably already tell, there are rather obvious religious undertones in this particular regiment, and they are recruited in a rather unique way. In most cases, planets have either militias or PDFs or some other named organization to provide defense for the planet itself. It is from this pool of manpower that units for the Imperial Guard are usually recruited amongst the cream of the crop, in most cases with a few noteworthy
cream of the crop. That's a great saying, by the way.
Exceptions. With the Maccabian Janissaries, however, they do not recruit primarily from the planet's population itself. In fact, the Maccabian militia, which is the PDF of the planet, is created almost entirely from the hundreds of thousands, if not millions of pilgrims that flock to the planet every single year. And it is these zealous travelers that make up the majority of the Maccabian militia. There does not appear to be any kind of restrictions on locals joining the militia as well, so I'm sure there are quite a few locals in addition to the pilgrims, but the pilgrims are, well, just flat out more numerous. As I mentioned earlier, the planet Maccabus Quintus is a pretty shitty place to live. It is a cold...
So the planet is a pilgrimage for the saint guy for the Emperor. I'm sure there's actually some sort of pilgrimage in 40k for the Emperor. There has to be. What was it? Well, there's a few in real life. I remember in RE, man, we had to learn about all kinds. I finished my RE GCSE a whole year before, so I luckily had 1 year less of RE. You know what I'm saying? Which was a great year. But you have that Wailing Wall one, right? For Judaism, where you can, like, I don't know, do they kiss the wall or something? And bro, I might be butchering this right now. There's definitely a wall in Judaism, bro, in Israel. You also have like that Christ walk for Christianity, where you walk like the whole thing that allegedly Jesus walked with the cross on his back. And then you have the whole Muslim pilgrimage to Mecca, of course. I think that's the most well-known one, right? Where they have like the millions and millions of people literally walk it, like go there every year. Which is insane, bro. Insane. Like, you see them walking around the whole thing. It's pretty cool.
Cold, dark and desolate place where the only signs of civilization are towering temple cities, and rays of sunlight are rare indeed. It is not exactly a planet that would normally speaking be inviting life. In fact, in most cases the planet would probably not even be settled to begin with, since it has very little in the way of raw resources, and it most certainly can't be turned into an agri-world. It is only its position as a shrine world that really means that it has any kind of population whatsoever. So the population that exists on the planet is almost certainly entirely dedicated to servicing the pilgrims. And no, not in that way, or, well, quite possibly in exactly that way. But my point is, the vast majority...
Intergalactic prostitutes. That's something right there. That is something, ladies and gentlemen. Just make sure that you don't get corrupted by Slanesh if that's your line of work in 40k. Because if you do, you will grow a few extra arms. And a few extra spiky bits.
The majority of the population are almost certainly focused on providing the pilgrims with various accommodations and services. You know, hotels, food, bakeries, and of course guided tours to the various cathedrals, stuff like that. It will in all due probability be getting pretty much all of its produce from outside the planet. Undoubtedly there are some produce being created on the planet, agricultural good and stuff like that, grown in greenhouses and specialized crop plantations, but it's going to be dwarfed by the sheer amount necessary to feed both the population, of course, and the millions upon millions of pilgrims and tourists. As such, the planet is probably going to be ruinously expensive, where you have the upper strata, the planet's highborn, so to say, owning massive hotels, and probably even having a fair bit of a stake in the ecclesiarchy itself. In fact, a good deal of said hotels are probably run directly by the ecclesiarchy, and of course the Adeptus Ministorum. While
That's interesting. Does anyone else like hotels, bro? I like going to hotels as long as they're nice and clean. But I've like, I don't know if anyone else watches those Reddit videos on YouTube, like, but I've heard some weird hotel horror stories, bro. Now I'm kind of scared to go back to any hotels because I heard they don't clean them properly, dude. Might have to take a black light next time.
While other things, luxuries, like, you know, cakes and stuff that would have to be created with agricultural means, would be incredibly expensive. In all due likelihood, the local population will subside off pretty much alms and charities given to them by the church, by the Imperial creed, as they are unlikely to be able to grow much by themselves, and they will almost certainly not be able to afford anything that's been shipped in en masse. I mean,
so it's kind of like the old days where the church was in charge, dude. This is basically like fucking 1400s.
Think of this. If you have to ship grain from another goddamn planet, you can imagine what that'll do to the price of grain, can't you? In other words, being a local of Maccabius Quintus is probably really, really, really shit. The food is going to be horrible, you're pretty much doomed to never-ending poverty, and the only people in your lives that have anything even resembling wealth, or even just a decent living standards, would almost certainly be the ecclesiarchy. As such, you can imagine that people will start getting really, really religious really, really quickly. It's remarkably just how religious a man can get if you offer him a sausage when he's eaten nothing but porridge throughout his entire life.
Oh, porridge.
What I'm trying to say is, I would not...
Oh. I don't like porridge. Maybe once or twice a year. I remember, man, one time my brother wanted to eat porridge. This was years and years ago, man. And he asked my mom to make him porridge, and my dad was like, yo, porridge is jail food. That made me laugh, dude. Because that's exactly what they serve you in prison. Jail. It's exactly what they serve you in prison, dude. Porridge. I wouldn't know. Maybe if anyone knows if they do actually serve you porridge in prison, you know, but I'm assuming they do because it's slop.
Not be surprised if joining the Janissaries, or at the very least just joining the militia, would increase the standard of living by quite a lot. And considering that the religion of the world is very, very martial, seeing as the patron saint of the planet is obviously Drusus, an Imperial military commander, joining the militia almost certainly comes with a fair few perks, and also, of course, social status. And here's the real kicker. The Maccabian Janissaries recruit from the militia itself, which means that the Janissaries are made up almost entirely of pilgrims, with undoubtedly a few locals here and there, predominantly probably ecclesiarchy personnel that are rising in the ranks, seeing as, again, the best way to gain social standing on this particular planet will almost certainly be within the church. And as such, the best way to translate said standing into perhaps a military position like an officer would be to have a previous position within the church, or potentially vice versa, as both are extremely religious organizations. Anyways, the Maccabian Janissaries recruit only the best of the best in the militia, and getting recruited into the Maccabian Janissaries is seen as a great honor, and indeed even more so, because it is a religious calling for life. It is a great duty. It is a mission from the God Emperor himself, practically. This translates into the simple fact that Maccabian Janissaries will never return to their homeworlds. Ever. In the case of normal Imperial Guard regiments, they will probably never return home, but should the regiment commit some great deed, or be reduced to the point where they are no longer considered combat effective, the regiment may be disbanded, and thereby given a plot of land on a planet nearby, either the planet that they did something awesome to win, or simply a nearby rock in the case of a regiment being disbanded. However, the Janissaries will almost...
So, like, when they disband your regiment, do they give you a plot of land? Is that just a choice? Do you have to take that? Or can they recruit you into some other regiment? Or do they give you, like, a wife as well? Like, or a husband? I don't know if there is women in there. You know, do they give you that? Or do you just have to live alone on a farm for the rest of your life? Kinda sucks, dude.
Never accept this. Even when they have been reduced to the point of complete and utter combat uselessness, they will even demand to be transferred into new regiments of Janissaries, or they will simply ask to be thrown at the enemy head first. If neither of those are a possibility, they will often take their kit and wander the galaxy, protecting pilgrims and carrying out other religious works, like, for example, lending their lasguns to various other religious causes, that are in need of the persuasive effect that only a nice big fat rifle could provide. And so, knowing all that, I think it's going to come as no great surprise when I tell you that the Janissaries are rather fanatical. And when I say fanatical, I mean the kind of fanatical that will see them line up in ordered ranks and wander straight into machine gun fire with nary a complaint uttered. But to be fair, if any regiment is going to be doing something so suicidally silly, the Maccabian Janissaries will probably be the best choice, as they, though few in numbers, are equipped far better than most Imperial Guard regiments. Let's go over their equipment list real quick, shall we? So, right off the bat, they've got the M36 pattern lasgun, rather than the more common M35. The 36 is a bit bulkier, as you can see, and it's got a bit larger power pack, giving it a slightly bigger oomph than the standard M35 Galaxy pattern. Other than that, it's a relatively unremarkable weapon. The average soldier carries with him 4 lasgun charges and anything he can steal, a Maccabian Janissaries guard uniform, which is coloured in the light blues and silver of their home world, reminiscent of the great salt flats that cover the planet, and of course the death mask of Saint Drusus. Furthermore, they carry a combat knife, 2 fragmentation grenades, 2 crack grenades, poor weather gear, a rucksack, basic toolkit, mess and water canteens, blankets, sleeping bags, rechargeable lamp packs, grooming kits, dog tags, the Imperial Infantryman's uplifting arse wipe, 2 weeks of rations, respirator, purity seals, obviously, because, well, duh. And they've also got photo visors worked into their death masks, which gives them a considerable advantage over most regiments in low light conditions. And finally, they carry Mark I flak armor. This is considerably tougher than the general wet tissue paper flak armor of most Imperial Guard regiments, and will offer roughly the same protection as Imperial Guard Stormtrooper carapace armor, meaning that the Maccabian Janissaries are considerably tougher than standard Imperial Guard regiments. Additionally, it should be mentioned that their entire religion, their entire faith based around Saint Drusus, is one of endurance and badassery. As such, they are capable of near Space Marine levels of sheer not giving a fuck. Maccabian Janissary that has his legs blown off is expected to simply crawl towards the enemy and hopefully stab them to death with a broken.
Let's go, dude. I'm not sure you're killing like that, bro. Like they just finish you off like real quick. But what I never understood, man, Space Marines, bro. If you ever watch like the animations that people make, they're always fucking missing arms and missing legs when they're fighting, and they just keep going. So you know,
knife if need be. And it's a good thing too that they're so goddamn stubborn, because their battle tactics are somewhat archaic, should we perhaps say. The Maccabian Janissaries are trained to form into line formations, if need be, and march shoulder to shoulder up to the enemy, delivering volley after volley of well-organized and disciplined lasgun fire. Now, don't get me wrong, they are trained in more modern ways of combat as well, but they see a certain glory in this shoulder-to-shoulder way of battle, a certain purity. And we all know how zealots tend to act when purity is in the picture. In all due essentiality, the Maccabian Janissary suffers from many of the same flaws that most overly religious units do. One, they are often somewhat complicated to command, since they will often figure that they know best, because, well, they are literally talking to God, and you wouldn't want to disagree with God, now would you? Second, they have a nasty habit of biting off more than they can chew, because, again, they're blessed by God, and God wouldn't lead them astray, etc. And thirdly, they have a nasty habit of blaming others, because after all, they were told, by God, again, to attack said position. And they were also told that God would protect them. And yet, they did not...
That means it's your fault, because God told them to do it. Makes perfect sense.
Managed to take said position, and they suffered heavy casualties. And since God, obviously, is infallible and can never be blamed for anything because, well, God, that has to mean that somebody else failed them. But it can't possibly be themselves, because they are, after all, very, very pure and ever so religious. No, it's gonna have to be somebody else's fault. And this often results in the more zealous elements of the Imperial Army falling upon the less zealous elements. For example, there are accounts of Maccabian Janissaries serving alongside other regiments, and in times of difficulty and adversity, they would often form near-inquisitorial groupings that would go into the other regiments and scour them for heretics and other such nonsense. And you know...
Really? Really, dude? We're doing witch hunts now? Oh my god.
Oh, there is a queer coincidence with all of this. Generally speaking, when people go on witch hunts, they tend to find witches. Now, whether or not that is simply because they're...
That's a real thing, dude. If, like, this is what people don't understand about a lot of things. If I pay you to do something, if I pay you to find a link between fucking reading and cancer, dude, you're gonna find that link because I paid you to do it. You're gonna find something. That's just how it is, bro. Like, that's a lot of science, bro. You could link a lot of things together. Like you could, but it doesn't mean it's true. You could just disregard all kinds of data. That happens all the time. People just find one link and they just go with it, bro. They don't look into context or anything. A whole shit ton of stuff has happened like that, especially with medical shit. Like, this food leads to cancer. This is like, dude, you haven't gone fully researched. You got paid to find a link between it from a certain person who wants that to be true, you know what I mean? Might not have explained that well, but you know.
a lot of witches in the world, or because it is surprisingly easy to find flaws when you are specifically looking for flaws.
Exactly.
Well, I'll leave that up to your imagination. And as you can probably further imagine, the other regiments did not take particularly kindly to mobs of Janissaries breaking into their camps, beating the shit out of their people, and occasionally dragging some of them off to serve as extra bonfire fuel. And while strife between Imperial Guard regiments is absolutely nothing new, and bouts of violence and occasionally even homicides is nothing particularly rare, generally speaking, the various officers and commissars attached to the regiments will be doing everything they can to stop it. A little bit of inter-regimental competition is all well and good. The occasional robbing or beating is also something that's simply just part of life, but organized murders, well, that generally cannot be allowed to continue, cause it has a nasty habit of escalating rather quickly. But of course, within the Maccabian Janissaries, it wasn't just the rank and file who had a nasty tendency to hear the God Emperor whispering to them something along the lines of, "Hey, that dude over there's a heretic." The officers as well had a nasty case of personal conversation with the Golden One. And so, far from discouraging these random acts of violence, they would frequently be encouraging them, if not even just flat out organizing them. And since now the other Imperial Guard regiments would have no choice but to defend themselves, since they're in all due essentiality...
Traitor! Traitor! Yeah, there you go. Heretic. All of that. There you go.
Attacked by their own allies? Well, let's just say that the bloodshed will quickly cease being an intermittent and occasional affair and grow into a far more permanent sort of firefight. There is, however, also a bit of a flip side to this particular coin. You see, just because you're paranoid doesn't mean that somebody isn't out to get you, and the Maccabian Janissaries most definitively have enemies within the Imperium. Again, this is a highly religious Imperial Guard regiment that has very strong ties to the Adeptus Ministorum and the Ecclesiarchy as a whole. Now, as we have talked about earlier in the Sisters of Battle videos, the Ecclesiarchy is not allowed to have any men under arms, which is why they have the Sisters of Battle, because, well, they do not have winkies, and as such they are allowed to carry heavy automatic weaponry. But the Maccabian Janissaries are, in all but name, the Frateris militia come again. After all, they are a fully trained, fully disciplined, and fully equipped Imperial Army unit, with heavy support, tanks, heavy weapons, artillery, and everything else they could possibly need to be a fully sized and effective fighting force, with a strong discipline and a nice solid supply line. And they are, in all due essentiality, loyal to the Ecclesiarchy, since, after all, they are a military order specifically devoted to an imperial saint. All I'm saying is, if you've got an imperial commander on one hand saying, "shoot the priest," and you've got an Ecclesiarchy preacher on the other hand saying, "shoot the officer," the Janissary is more than likely to put a lasbolt through the ever-so-twinkly eyes of the dude in green rather than the guy in sackcloth. And this has undoubtedly earned them quite a lot of enemies within the Adeptus Administratum that see the Maccabian Janissaries as a rather dangerous force, but at the same time they are also a very potent fighting force within a less than stable part of the galaxy. As such, they cannot afford to move against them openly. But you can make damn sure that any and every occasion upon which the Maccabian Janissaries would appear to misbehave, or perhaps take their zealotry just a little bit too far, is going to be very carefully recorded by their enemies for use when the sector is a little bit more quiet, and the Imperium will have some leisure time to take care of internal problems, shall we say. And, well, I wouldn't put it beyond the Adeptus Administratum to orchestrate one or two events just to lend a little bit of extra credence to a case they already know to be righteous. But of course, it is not all doom and gloom. The political situation of the Maccabian Janissaries, mixed with their rather fascinating ideas of worship, does end up having some small teensy-weensy problems, and is probably going to lead to a fair bit of infighting in and of itself. However, it cannot be denied that the Janissaries themselves are a very potent fighting force. They are very well equipped, heavily armoured for an Imperial Guard regiment, packing a fair bit of heavy weapons of their own, and they will happily assault even the most heavily defended position, regardless of the casualties that they are likely to take in doing so. And most wise Imperial commanders will certainly find a way of utilizing this particular trait. It is in all due essentiality a simple question of every problem has its tool. In the case of the Maccabian Janissaries, they are very much so defensive garrison troops. If you order them to attack a position across the open, they will do so, and due to their zealotry and resilience, they're quite likely to carry the objective as well, but they are going to emerge bloodied, if not crippled, from the engagement, as they will often be marching shoulder to shoulder across open ground into screaming machine gun fire. And that's if they're lucky. There are things in the 41st millennium that would be considerably more uncomfortable than a machine gun. However, that very same zealotry will serve them very, very well indeed on the defensive. Place the Maccabian Janissaries in a nice fortified position behind some plasteel bulwarks, for example, and you will have units that simply cannot be suppressed. No matter how many heads pop like overripe melons from automated machine gun fire, most of their bodies will still be covered, and in the meantime, they are able to deliver disciplined volleys of devastating lasgun fire, scorching into the enemy, making any assault upon such a precision a damn bloody proposition indeed. And additionally, due to their zealotry, they are extremely unlikely to abandon their defensive positions.
But how do you stop them from fucking getting angry in the name of the Emperor and just running towards the enemies?
If they're getting charged by a screaming horde of orcs, the Janissaries will either repulse them with disciplined volleys of lasgun fire or gleaming rank upon rank of bayonets, or they will fucking die trying. They would also likely make excellent garrison troops for low-technology worlds, or worlds that simply have a different view of the Emperor. As we've talked about on several occasions, many worlds have slightly different interpretations of the worship of the god Emperor, placing the Maccabian Janissaries on a somewhat feral world, a feudal world, for example, where they see the Emperor as more of a symbolic thing, like, for example, the sun or a great spirit beast or something like that. The Janissaries would be the perfect garrisoning force for such a world, because they would be seen as others, as different, and they probably would also lose a lot of their humanity by hiding behind their crying death masks. They would be a very cold and distant force of imperial authority, and due to their utter and complete religious conviction, they would have absolutely no goddamn problems whatsoever in punishing the heretics, should they prove to be a little bit unruly. Granted, there's always the danger that they might take their purity just a tiny bit too far, but hey, that's what commissars and entrenched preachers are for. And that, ladies and gentlemen, has been my lore video.
Alright, that's the end of Maccabian Janissaries. I definitely didn't talk as much through the second half. Oh my god, that video felt like it went on forever, and somehow 40 minutes, bro. What the hell was I doing? But yeah, man, that's the end of this video. Be sure to leave a like and subscribe. You can join our Discord as well, and I'll see you all next time.